So you have mania, which is possessive, dependent love. Eros, which is romantic, passionate love.
Okay.
Agape, which is selfless love. Storge, which is friendship, love. Pragma, which is like it's like a shopping list love.
Okay.
And then like a ludus, which is like more like a game playing love.
So
It's like taking over.
something that tends to be an interesting thing in our culture is that in the Bible we see men, you know, in camaraderie, in like loving each other in old, ancient times, like men being close together and almost being like as if they're one flesh. I know that sounds weird, but like they were close to each other, they loved each other, they had each other's back. Obviously you guys have a military background.
I think, Byron, you've touched on something that is I don't know, it's extremely rare. And from a military perspective, when you're at war, like everybody is there because they are down to die for you. And that type of bond is like, there's nothing close to it. Like, I mean, I was telling Janelle the other night, I was like, when we were talking about giving birth and stuff, and I told her, I was like, in that moment, like,
because men can have periods too.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
In those moments, like, I felt as if I was back in Afghanistan, and I had a buddy in front of me that was basically dying and in so much pain, and you just like want to fight so hard for that person, but you are powerless. You can do nothing except for in Afghanistan. Maybe the next day you go and kill a few bad guys and you feel a little better, but there's nothing that can take back that pain. And anyways, it's just there. I think there's a bond there that is like, I can't really describe it. A lot of guys get out and they are depressed because they don't have their friends in with them anymore, their brothers, people that they fought alongside and watched other people die. And like, nobody really talks and says like, hey man, I will die for you. It's just a given. And
like
so
an
when
unspoken thing.
yeah, when the guy next to you and the guy next to him and the guys over there, like, they're all in it to protect you and keep you safe, and you're there to do the same. Like, when you have that, oh my goodness, you're close. Like, it's insane. And being back here away from that, it's extremely rare to find that. And when you find that, you don't want to let it go because it is so rare. So when you talk about like guys hanging out together and being real with each other and having each other's backs, like literally, if something went down right now, who could I call that would come over and would have my back and help me protect whatever's happening, right? Or just be there for me. Like, who's willing to sacrifice anything for me? And who am I, able to sacrifice anything for? Like, I think it's outside of war. I think maybe having that conversation with someone to let them know, like, hey, like, I really care about you. I love you. If you ever need me, call me and I'll be there. So many guys desire that. They just don't know how to communicate it. And I think by having a simple conversation, being like, dude, if you were ever to get like jumped or something, I'd be right there and I would be fighting alongside you. You know what I mean? Like, if you know someone's going to do that, or maybe like your family's going somewhere and you're out of town, it's like, who do you trust with your family?
Yeah.
Like, who can help them out, when they're in need and you're gone. Like, having someone like that, man, it can help you get through a lot. And it's a benefit if they know Jesus, obviously. But yeah, I think having someone like that from a man's perspective, I think that's paramount.
I think the biggest thing too that you're talking about, Byron, is the thing that I think that we struggle with as a society a lot with, in that we compartmentalize a lot of things and then we over sexualize everything.
Yes.
So when we talk about the relationship David and Jonathan had, very close, very personable. There is a friendship. There is a deep, abiding love, right? I think in our modern day in America, we would say, oh, that's borderline homoerotic, borderline homosexual. That's not how you love.
Yeah.
Versus, well, how is their love that way? And why do we say that? And I think, well, one, because we over sexualize things and our Western culture, to the point where if I say something, if I do these certain things, then it's almost like I'm doing them in this like omissional sexual way. Versus, no, I'm doing those things because I care about that person and I want to sacrifice for them, and I have a deep, abiding friendship with them, which is love. So I think one part is that our society has made these like kind of unwritten, unsaid rules of can't do that. If you start doing that, then people are going to think that you're, borderline homosexual or something along those lines. I think that's one problem. And then I think the other problem is compartmentalizing it. Like Chad said, I think a lot of guys, especially people who are in the military, who have come out of a combat zone, I think we're told and we're conditioned to be like, oh, well, that's over there. We're not going to deal with it over here. It's like, no, you're going to deal with it over here, and it's going to be worse because you're actually going to be isolated more. You're not going to be in the same dynamic that you were. Like, you're not going to be living with 2 or 3 other guys in the same room that you wake up, you talk about your life with them, you share what's going to go on, you play games, you talk to them about random stupid stuff that you may not talk to anybody else about in your life. And then you come back and you don't have that. What do you have? You have everybody's living on their own, everybody's separated, and then that's why you have a really high suicide rate, because you're not in that same community dynamic that you were in Afghanistan or Iraq or in a certain combat zone you were in. You're in a dynamic of it's fend for yourself. It's radical self-reliance versus an actual communal, healthy dependence. And I think that's a game changer when you talk about what does love look like between men within the church. I think exactly what Chad said, somebody who has your back, somebody who knows that if you go down, you're going to be right there taking care of their kids or their wife or anything. You do anything for that person. That's the type of love that Jesus has for us, really. That's how he showed it on the cross. But I think that gets, there's a lot of stereotypes and stigmas in our culture, because if you do something that's sacrificial or more emotional, maybe, then you're going to be labeled as, oh, you're lighting the loafers, or you're borderline, homosexual or something like that. It's like, no, you're not. It's like you're displaying the love of God to that person on a practical way. It's just breaking cultural barriers, I would say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as you say that, I'm thinking to myself, like, it almost sounds like a weird fear of man too, because you said that, people are feeling like, oh, I might be labeled as like maybe homosexual or something because I'm more in touch, or not more in touch, but like I do love my brothers. And it's like there's like this fear of man of being labeled as something that you're not. But the truth is, you want to express that you do love people, but you're afraid of the outcome of what other people might think of you as, because you're expressing that appropriately. But yet, if we don't give examples to these men about what a healthy relationship looks like between men, then men are always going to have that fear or that stigma of being like, well, I'm just going to be, they're just going to think I'm weak,
and then they're never going to get any help in their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's never going to be any real transformation in their life, because they're stifling the Holy Spirit, the work of the Holy Spirit, I feel like, in a sense. Because if you bottle up emotions and what you feel all the time, and you don't let that out, and you don't talk to somebody about that, it's like that's doing more harm to yourself than you think it does. And
you can't can't filter the filthiness, it's filling every crevice. Hard to the core and it's oozing out the edges. Balance with no boundaries, perfectly symmetric. If you set trip, you get your head flipped. Reap what you sow, change the whole perspective. Disrespect, don't get surprised if you get disrespected. Natural law, like when gravity falls, but my humanity is not controlled by those animal instincts. Discipline displayed at my disposal of weapons that can blow you, but I'd rather get to know you, show you the way out of orbit. I forfeit my power, take yours and absorb it. I could leave you in torture and torment, or free you from your distorted self-portrait. Mixed emotions fixated on fiction. Reality burns more than it bites. Fight the addiction. Fantasy land, price of admission is everything. Enter at your own risk when the dark